2023 Mercedes C-Class versus BMW 3 Series. Which is the better luxury car to buy? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. For this video, we're going to compare the updated 2023 BMW 3 Series and Mercedes C-Class to find out which is the better luxury sports sedan. Now, although I tend to lean towards recommending luxury brands like Lexus for their better long-term reliability, BMW and Mercedes do make two of the best sellers in this segment. So to find out which one is best, or if you should buy another luxury car instead, stick around until the end of this video. And if you enjoy and get value out of this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I post 2 videos a week, always straight to the point, valuable car buying advice, designed to help you, the consumer. Now, the BMW 3 Series and Mercedes C-Class are what I consider to be short-term buys. This means that they are ideal cars to buy for short-term ownership for around 3 to 4 years under the warranty period, which is why they are a good option if you just want to do a lease. But they're not necessarily the safest cars to buy for long-term ownership, to keep for upwards of 10 years or longer, and I'm going to explain why a little bit later in the video. For now, let's talk about some of the major differences between these two cars, starting with the C300 that I'm test driving here. In the past, the 3 Series has always been the sportier, firmer one of the two, whereas the C-Class has always been the softer one and better suited for those who just prefer to have a more comfortable ride. And I still think that remains the case to this day. Under the hood, you get a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine that comes matched to a 9-speed automatic transmission and a 4MATIC all-wheel drive system. The engine produces 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, giving it a 0 to 60 time of around 6 seconds, more than enough power for a car like this. And thanks to a new mild hybrid system, you also have a very smooth engine start-stop system. Now, in the past, I've never been a fan of this feature because they tend to be quite jerky and uncomfortable, but this one is actually quite smooth and refined. And although this car does have quite good handling, you can definitely toss it around corners with quite a bit of enthusiasm, and it remains quite composed. You can also tell that it was tuned more on the softer side for those who just want to have a nice, soft, smooth, comfortable ride. Mercedes didn't sacrifice ride quality in the name of having better handling, and I think a lot of buyers are going to prefer it that way. Now, if you want, you could spend more money and go for the AMG version, which is the C63. That one basically comes with a higher output version of the same 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, producing 402 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. But although this engine gives you much better power and of course better acceleration, accelerating from 0 to 60 in around 4 seconds, I don't think it's really necessary to move up to the AMG version. Because you still basically just have a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, it still has more or less the same feel as a C300. And because, like I mentioned, the C-Class is really a car that's more about comfort over handling and performance, all of the other AMG upgrades that you get, like the firmer suspension and bigger brakes, really just ruin the ride quality and don't really enhance the driving experience all that much. I think the basic package that you get with the C300 delivers the perfect balance between performance, handling, and comfort, and it also has a really luxurious interior to match too. Although the exterior design is relatively conservative and is clearly just an evolution of the previous generation model, the interior is a huge leap forward when it comes to design and technology. I've often criticized the entry-level Mercedes models for having a somewhat cheap-feeling interior, but that doesn't seem to be the case with this new C-Class. This is a surprisingly high-quality interior with really nice finishes and materials, and it has more or less the same design that you get in the much more expensive E-Class and even the S-Class. And not only does it look fantastic, but it's also filled with a lot of top-notch technology too. But although this large center touchscreen, which controls more or less everything inside the car, does look very good, it has excellent looking graphics and it's very fast and responsive too, it's not exactly the best when it comes to user friendliness. It can be a little bit distracting to use while driving, and I would much prefer to have just simple buttons for basic things like climate controls, which would be a lot more user-friendly. And unfortunately, things are no better with the steering controls either, because Mercedes has gone with these capacitive touch controls on the wheel, which are just as frustrating to use. It's pretty clear that Mercedes went with form over function for this interior, and all of this technology just might be a little bit too intimidating for some buyers, especially some senior buyers which might not find this interior to be all that user-friendly. But that being said, for the most part, it is a well-designed space. You also have very comfortable front seats and plenty of room in the rear seats too. So now I think it's about time to get behind the wheel of the BMW 3 Series and see how it compares. Okay, behind the wheel of the 2023 BMW 3 Series. Now, first off, please forgive my different look for this part of the video. I was forced to film it on a separate day, but I did have both of these cars for a full week back to back. And even though I did notice some very clear similarities, there are some major differences between them. There's no question the 3 Series feels like the sportier car between the two. It just has better composure and balance and feels sharper when you're tossing it around corners. The ride is also a little bit on the firmer side, although I wouldn't necessarily call it uncomfortable. Both of these are perfectly fine to drive every day and feel very smooth and refined. There are, however, some very clear performance differences between them, especially depending on the 3 Series model that you go with. Even though the entry-level 330i produces the exact same power as a C300, it certainly feels more powerful off the line with better power and acceleration, and it also has much better fuel economy too. But that being said, the 330i and C300 don't necessarily feel dramatically different from behind the wheel. It's a totally different story, however, if you go for the M340i, like the one that I'm test driving here. Unlike the rest of the models, the M340i is the only version that you can buy with a proper 6-cylinder engine. In this case, BMW's famous B58 turbo 3-liter inline-6, which produces 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque with an 8-speed automatic transmission and xDrive all-wheel drive. Now, there's no other way of putting it. This is an incredible engine. It produces a ton of power with a 0 to 60 time of under 4 seconds, nearly as quick as a proper BMW M car. But not only is it incredibly powerful, but it's also buttery smooth and refined, and it has an excellent exhaust note too. This drivetrain is the reason you buy a BMW. It's absolutely phenomenal, and a huge leap forward from not only the C300 or C43, but almost anything else that you can buy in the segment. The power, the refinement, the sound, it's all incredible. And even the fuel economy of this engine is not all that bad. It gets more or less the same fuel economy as a C300 with the 4-cylinder turbo. Wow. I would say that as a whole, this is probably the very best drivetrain that you can get in any car under 6 figures. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. And it's not just the incredible performance of the M340i that makes it a real winner. It's also the quality that you get too. It's no secret that in the past, BMW, much like Mercedes and a lot of other European luxury brands, hasn't exactly been known for having superb reliability. This B58 inline-6, however, is a bit of a different story. BMW has refined and tweaked and evolved this engine for so many years now that it's actually turned out to be quite a reliable engine. Quality-wise, the M340i and other similar models that use this engine have proven to be some of the more reliable cars that BMW has made in quite some time. But not only does this car deliver in terms of its performance and quality, but it also has a very impressive interior too. The build quality and materials are excellent. You have these very supportive and comfortable sport seats, and you also have top-notch technology too, with the latest iDrive 8 infotainment system. Now, although BMW has updated this interface with excellent looking graphics and responsiveness, it has to be said the user friendliness is really not that much better than the C-Class. The issue is more or less the same. Because BMW has eliminated most of the regular buttons, you are forced to use the touchscreen to control almost everything inside the car, which is a little bit frustrating. That being said, I still find the setup and usability to be a little bit better than the Mercedes. The build quality is also a notch above too, and you also have just as much interior space and rear seat space. And as far as pricing is concerned, there really isn't a huge difference between these two cars. Pricing ranges from around 45 to 60,000 US, or roughly 60 to 75,000 Canadian, depending on the model and the packages that you go with. So if the final price and the resulting lease payments end up being more or less the same, then which one of these two should you go with? Well, if you're comparing the entry-level models, the C300 and the 330i, there really isn't a significant difference between them. So between these two, I would say it largely comes down to personal preference. But then when you factor in the M340i, that changes things completely. The performance, the capability, almost everything about it is absolutely top-notch, and exactly what you would expect when buying a BMW. And as mentioned, from a reliability perspective, I would say that you're getting a higher quality car with the M340i versus anything in the C-Class lineup. But even with that said, if reliability is a priority for you, maybe you have a low tolerance for repairs and maintenance, and plan on buying one of these cars to keep for as long as possible, in that case, neither one of these is an ideal choice. You would still be much safer buying something else, like the Lexus IS instead. The IS300 or IS350, or if you want something with performance to match the M340i, the IS500 would be a much safer choice in terms of reliability. It would also have far lower operating costs too. For example, according to CarEdge, the Lexus IS has an average 10-year ownership cost of around $5,600 versus $11,000 to $13,000 for the BMW and Mercedes. But if you don't mind spending a little bit more, or if you just plan to lease one of these cars for 3 to 4 years, there's no question the M340i is the one that I would go with. So let me know what you think of the 2023 Mercedes C-Class and BMW 3 Series. Which of these cars would you buy, or would you buy something else instead? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also take a look at my other videos by clicking these links over here. Make sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram. And if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to check out carhelpcanada.com. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.